Hello, my name is Shirley Self, and I'm here to talk astrology. And tonight I'm continuing my discussion of the journey of the soul, according to William Butler Yeats. So I have come to moon phase 17, the demonic man. Now we're at the waning moon. This is after the full moon, and we're at the into the third 24 hours after the full moon. That's 26 degrees to 38 degrees after the full moon, or from 205 degrees 42 minutes to 231 25 minutes in degrees around the zodiac. Anyway, this is the inconjunct, right here in the middle here at 210 degrees. The Scorpio inconjunct. The inconjunct, other one is down here. I think it's right here. And that one is the Virgo inconjunct. So, moon phase 17. We're into the, back into the rectangle of focus and loss. And this, our demonic being here has, 16 wanted to create it, and hopefully did, create the perfect life for the perfect individual. And 17 wants to do that too. But while 16 had a certain amount of stability in his life, 17 is a life of constant change. And so at any time an ideal situation gets built, the daemon comes along and kicks it apart and demands that moon phase 17 change. What they're not looking for the perfect life. They're looking for the perfect path through life, the perfect ideal action for this ideal person. Their creative expression is exceedingly fine, and is as they do their work, is the thought that comes to them from their daemon. Their self-realization is complete. They need no further perfection, no further adjustment. They need to go into action and express their truth. That's what moon phase 17 is about. Their perception of truth is so good. We'll look at their body of fate over there, and the the extraordinary information that comes to them from their mask, that tells them what is really going on. They can feel what's going on. It is a feeling they have in their gut. The discrimination, discernment that comes from their creative genius is, and their creative genius is now, in your horoscope, the creative genius has moved kind of into the, probably around the 11th house. So, their body of fate is the saint, and the saint brings them loss and disillusionment. And that raises their perspective. What they have to do is eliminate all their emotional investment in their emotional biases that come along with the myth of outer perfection. You know, that myth, that dangerous illusion that I am now perfect, and therefore the world will receive me perfectly with joy in their hearts, which is a dangerous illusion. Anyway, they have their spiraling movement. The daemon kicks them out of any happy situation that they get comfortable in, and so their perspective grows higher and higher and higher. It's a spiraling movement. Their goal is the clear reception of the thought of their daemon, and their daemon speaks in images. It speaks into the subconscious. And these symbols that it uses. Now the images that you get, the symbols that you get in the subconscious are That's the way the subconscious talks to you in symbols and images. And the thing about the images that come to 17 is they're not stable like they were in 16. They're not formed and something you can use all your life. They move, they flow, they change. Always pulling the mind of 17 higher and higher. So they're flooded in their imagination is absolutely flooded with images from their daemon and from their reality that they're living in. They're very observant of the social reality that they move in. Notice the Gemini there, and the Scorpio, which really knows what's going on. So anyway, these images that come to them from outside, they're fascinated by history and myth, and by what's going on in politics and in the culture. And these images come into them, and the daemon helps them to take them apart, recombine them, and form them into a more hopeful myth for the future. As William Blake said, art seeds the future. And so that's what Moon Phase 17 is, trying to build a more hopeful myth for the future, to inspire people. And so if 17 follows his heart, his life's going to be difficult. Why? Because he's obliged to tell the truth. If he doesn't follow his heart, his life's not really worth living, and he gets moody and cranky and unpleasant to live with. One of the things that comes from the body of fate here is a strong urge to simplify the life, to eliminate distractions. Now, because 17 tends to is still living strongly in the ideal, they tend to idealize the simple life. I should move to the farm and raise goats. Well, the problem is that they're bored by the farm, because while they'll claim to hate society, parties, crowds, politics and stuff, they love parties, crowds, and politics, and can't stand to be left out of parties, crowds, and politics. So a retreat is good for them. They need to do that because they need to keep their act together. Their fantasy life is still strong, and in order to sort out who they are and what they really want to do, they need to retreat once in a while. Retreat was a really strong thing for Moon Phase 13, solitude, and 17 needs a certain amount of that, but too much of that is not good for them. They need to be active. They have their inner harmony is kind of iffy. They are in. Also, all the world is always demanding that they move on, grow past whatever latest disaster has happened to them. But the loss of that inner harmony is the loss of truth, of their own inner truth. And these people are duty-bound to truth, their truth, and to speak the truth in the outer world. So truth is her duty and her weapon. We're talking about people who are teachers, politicians, people who change the world by their words. Moon Phase 17 very much understands the power of ideas. So what they need to do is to pursue whatever makes them happiest. That'll keep them creative. As the world keeps being pulled out from under them, hopefully our mind is rising higher and higher into objectivity, into higher understanding. Out of phase, attempting to escape their bad luck, they will abandon their passionate, ideal action, their, what Yeats called their own myth, and live a mundane life that is normal and average and not creative. This is a loss of their own unity. And it'll cost them their self-assurance, scatter their energies, frustrate their passions, and that'll bring out their hatred. Frustration, remember these people were prone to hatred, as these were prone to rage, and these were prone to brutality. Now, insensitivity sounds really nice compared to the rest of them, but trust me, it isn't. So out of phase, they will they'll judge others, and they'll feel persecution. They'll feel persecuted, and they will persecute others. And they can get morbid in their imaginings. Well, look at the Scorpio there, and we've got Pisces here. So wild imaginings is, if they're not active out in the world, following their own heart, then they become nasty people, and they can succumb to psychosomatic illnesses. It can be a downward spiral. Cynicism is a real problem with these people up in here, because the world is so contrary, and the myth of outer perfection is very hard for 17 to break through. That illusion that I've been nice to the world, and why does the world be treating me like that? It's hard to break that, and to allow the wounding that happens to foster art. That's what it's supposed to do, and for a lot of people it does. I've got some of the most amazing artists, and especially authors, are moving phase 17. So one of the problems that these people have is they can get really morbid, and their truth can be really easily perverted into propaganda. As Yeats said, there's no propagandist like the one who really knows the truth. So the saint over here knows what's important, but like I say, it takes away, the body of fate is fairly cruel to this side of our cycle here. Ideal situations break, love, friendship is betrayed, death happens, and those losses are deeply felt, as what in 13, who these people, they can get so discouraged they can do themselves in. There, I said it. Excuse me, I'm going to have a drink of water. Self-judgment. These people need no self-improvement. They've perfected themselves. Their mind is unified, and so seeking self-improvement, judging oneself as insufficient or unfinished, or comparing themselves with others is totally unwarranted. And it can drive them into becoming epicures, competing with other people and trying to fit in. So and the world is we're still in Gemini here, and so the curiosity will encourage them to scatter their energies too. Remember, this is focus and loss, but focus is what is most important to these people. They have their mask. Their mask is one of emotional intensity. Remember, this was physical intensity, and this is emotional intensity. And So these people are very artful. They're creative, beautiful emotion. They're partisan politicians, trust me. They're interested in history because it gives them a basis for understanding their times, and it helps them to have faith in human good so that they can actually do creative work that is inspiring and to people and to help lead us into the future, into a better future. Beginning to analyze at 17, analyze their talents to discover which ones to pursue. This is the beginning of specialization. Up here at 18, that is the issue of 18 is, what should I specialize in? And so 17, they have this tremendous creative potential, new ideas, new styles, new directions. But all of that is negated, can be negated by self-judgment. Now, retreat will restore them to contact with the demonic will. And it'll help them to continue, give them determination. Now, relationships have been fairly limiting by the ideal, right in here, starting to peter out here. And 17 is much more able to let people be who they need to be and not hold them to some kind of ideal. Much more accepting, much more tolerant. The goal is for fair and balanced relationships. Now, the will still has trouble knowing what it wants in moon phase 17. The lunar nature is still very strong. And the ideal is constantly changing. It's always becoming more and more realistic. This quarter is very much obliged to remove, eliminate, abandon all their emotional biases so that they can be objective, because there are politicians, there are theorists, our scientists, our idea mongers, and they give us answers to questions. And if these people take creative action and without emotional bias, the world will be a so much better place. But emotional bias is the curse of the air quarter up there. So our cards for moon phase 17, we've got the star. Oh, let me put this here so that we've got context. Okay. The star. Now the star, that's the higher self, drops a lure, a hook, some image, that a unique ambition, for instance, to pull you into experience, an experience that leads to wisdom, leads to self-reliance, leads to freedom from the past. So that's the star. It's right here. It's the connection between the moon and the subconscious, the lunar mind, and one's own creative nature. The Empress is the card for of 13 and 27, the creative genius and the body of fate. The Empress is the door to understanding. She's ruled by Venus. She's abundance. And because she's this path right here, she's bringing the mind to objectivity. That's what is up here. It is the high view. High view. If you put the human body here, this is the head up here. This is the head. So the Empress has to do with thought. She is the door to understanding. And that is the creative genius of moon phase 17. So we've got some neat moon phase 17. Paul Simon is a 17. and incredibly creative. Gene Roddenberry, talk about creative and pulling you toward the future. Mercy. Beverly Sills, Bubbles, they called her. And she had a lot of sorrow in her life, and still was called Bubbles. Lily Tomlin, and Joyce Carol Oates. And here we have William Blake. I'm very fond of William Blake. Yeats thought of him as the perfect moon phase 17, and I kind of agree. Now, the creative genius here is the ascendant minus 51 degrees 26 minutes. So the creative genius is up there in the 11th house. I'm sorry. I actually put the wrong one. And now the ascendant, let's get it organized here. The ascendant is ruled by the 12th house moon in Cancer. The midheaven, his midheaven, is ruled by Mars, which is ruled by the Sun, Jupiter in Sagittarius in the 5th. He was known for his creativity, that's for sure. The Uranus in Pisces in the 9th house is in conjunct that Mars in Leo. So hard for him to be a leader with his images so unusual, and yet he persisted. He persisted. His images were extraordinarily unusual. He was definitely the Uranus was powerful in him. Okay, and the Uranus in Pisces is square to Pluto, and so that's an uncompromising faith in his creative impulses for sure, which is a good thing because he faced an awful lot of blowback in his life. Notice that his North Node is in Leo in the 1st. So the loss, he had a lot of losses. He was not, people didn't, he wasn't popular. And so he would lose patron after patron. But the greatest loss to him was he lost his brother. And he lost his brother in his 20s, I think, as the Mercury solar progressed to the Pluto. And that would put him at about, he would have been, shoot, I don't know how old he was. But anyway, my math is, and my husband can do it in his head. Now, I'm the one that got the math medals, but he's the one that can. Anyway, so his Mercury's got a septile to Venus, and that is as William Blake said, art leads to the future, and I think that septile very much speaks to that. He was relationship, his wife was considered unsuitable. Notice the Capricorn descendant there, and the Saturn's in Aquarius in the 8th, and his father disowned him. But I think that so much of what his life was about was liberation from the tyranny of others. That midheaven was, I think, ruled by his dad, and which would have been Mars over there in the Leo. And William Blake needed to own his own Mars, and his own Neptune, and his own North Node, and needed to go his way, his own way. So he was born in a time, raised in a time of religious revolution. That was his body of fate. Down there in the 5th house, the sun is his body of fate. And it was a time of Swedenborg. Swedenborg, sorry. And believe it or not, the Muggletonians. So Blake was raised in a lot of, as you can see by the Uranus in Pisces up there, an unusual religious background. And his Jupiter sun in Sagittarius, he created his own religious iconography, one that is much more compassionate, that his body of fate is over there in the compassionate moon phase 27, which is in Pisces and Cancer, decadent of Pisces. Another thing that you might be able to notice from this horoscope is that he declared that sex was holy, and he was also an advocate of free love. And that might have been a difficulty he had marrying, getting a suitable woman to marry him. The free love issue might have been a deal breaker there. I don't know. But anyway, that's my take on moon phase 17. It's very complicated, moon phase. We're getting more and more complicated as we go around the cycle, as you would expect. As you would expect. So next time I will talk about moon phase 18. And moon phase 18 is a initiation phase. It's a tough one. And so I hope that your life feels blessed to you. And I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.